Saturday. Christmas comes early.
Unbelievable! Welcome to this incredible scene.
Bills.
To the end zone!
Chargers.
It's a touchdown!
An exclusive NFL game.
That's fantastic!
Live in primetime.
Wow!
Only on Peacock.
With a Christmas gift to their fans. They're having some fun now.
Bills versus Chargers. Saturday, 7:30 Eastern. Exclusively on Peacock.
Reboot your credit card with Apple Card, the credit card created by Apple. It gives you unlimited daily cash back that you can now choose to grow in a high-yield savings account that's built right into the Wallet app. Apply for Apple Card now in the Wallet app on iPhone and start growing your daily cash with savings today. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility requirements. Savings accounts provided by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
All right, welcome back to, I don't know if we had a really good name for it, the old guard, the adults in the room, the not hot take version of an analyzing the roster. But I am Thad Bell. I have with me Robert Russert, Mike Kuhn, and yeah, we probably are the oldest ones on the Blue Testament. So,
and we're not hot either. So yeah.
Hey, don't disparage yourself, Robert. This is the second episode of our look at the Sporting Kansas City roster of, what the ending of the season roster moves should be, could be, would be, and we all give our opinions. This is the first one we did goalies and defenders, and it was a little longer than we expected, but it was it was a good conversation, and surprisingly, we didn't all agree on every player.
Did you guys notice that, two other posts today about one particular player and then one about the whole roster build? So it's the in topic right now.
Mm-hmm. It is, which is why we're doing it.
Exactly.
All right. So today we are going to focus on midfielders because I know we don't have time to do both midfielders and forwards.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think yesterday Mike was usually kicking us off with which player to talk about.
Sure.
Do we want to start at the cheapest, the youngest?
Well, I was going to go with those. I was going to start with those that no longer that are completely out of contract. Let's start there. Let's start with the guys that are
all right.
No options, out of contract. They're
so
two.
We're starting with the oldest.
Sure. Let's start with the oldest, and one that I think, similar to my comments about Zuzi last night, will be a bit of a could be a bit of a heart versus head argument here.
All right. So Roger Espinoza.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
So Roger out of contract after this year. He is only on signed a 1-year deal ahead of this season for $300,000 according to the players union. He has been a consistent starter. He's started over 20 games this year for Kansas City. It seems like actually over this August stretch that Vermes has actually learned how to play Espinoza to get the most out of him, I think is a good way of putting it. With the fact that he's going when he starts, he's going 45 to 60 minutes. He's not he's not getting a full game anymore. He's getting an hour, usually tops. And like I said, this is one that I think this is easier than Zuzi's decision last night for me. I'm okay moving on from Roger. At the same time, I don't think we have somebody that does what Roger does on the roster either. We don't have somebody that has his level of bite, even if he is 36 or almost 36. No, just he turns 36 soon.
He's in his mid-30s.
Yes.
Robert.
Well, okay. Let's look at a couple of stats that kind of bear out what you said, Mike. One that stands out particularly for me is progressive passes. Those are passes that make the ball move forward 10 more yards than it was in the previous, like 6 passes is how it's defined. And Roger has an extraordinarily number of 83 progressive passes. He's always been a very good passer, more than a lot of people give him credit for, because he has good vision on the field. So not only the tackling and the physicalness you're talking about, Mike, but he really stands out in that area too. And, he can still play. I agree. 300K is not much of a hit, but you got to wonder, they negotiated a 1-year contract for last year. Are they going to do that again? Or was that kind of like considered, okay, this will be it? But, things do change.
Yeah. I think if he's back, it's probably as a guy off the bench / spot starter. Because, as we'll talk about, I think unless we're bringing in a new 6, the starting midfield, in my opinion, is Voltaire, Tommy, and Kinda, assuming Kinda's back to full health next season.
Or even 90% health.
Or even 90% health. That is your starting midfield, and then it becomes an argument of, are you going to stunt the growth of the likes of Hernandez and Duke and maybe even Davis to have that experienced guy in Espinoza on the roster, basically?
Good question. I'm going to add on to a little bit of what Robert was saying. I've found this stat recently of goals added, and I'm kind of interested in it. So the third most goals added on Sporting Kansas City was Roger Espinoza for this year. So he is still playing at a rate where he's contributing to the final result. Robert said he's not always given credit for the passing ability, and I have been one at times that did not give him a ton of credit for passing ability because I didn't see him doing it on a consistent basis. But he's had years where he's been like the second most assist leader on the team. There's one year I think he contributed, like one of Daniel's really good years, I guess 2019 maybe. Roger, I think, contributed at least half the assists to Daniel.
2018, he had 9 assists that season.
2018. I've been around too long to remember years exactly. No, I'm kidding. So anyway, he does have that ability. He does have that bite. And as far as other guys who might have that bite is Felipe Hernandez and then Jake Davis. Of course, they don't contribute quite the same way on the field as he does. And also just adding on to something you said earlier about Peter's finally learned to use him properly. I think he's finally got the players on the field and on the bench that he's okay with using him properly. That was always the thing, is if you don't have a guy that can come on and at least have some bite, like Duke or some of the other players that we've had, then he's not going to do that. And, you can say it's wrong and I can understand that, but that's going to be his reasoning, is he's going to still think if he didn't have that player that will make the team better, he's going to use the same player over and over again. All right. So do we need anything? Do we need any more conversation? Keep, delete. I think that's not the right term. Keep, let go. And in this case, I think do you need to persuade him to stay? Because he might be in that boat where he wanted to stay one more year to see how things went. And maybe he wants to stay one more year to see how things go. If he wants to stay, do you want to keep him?
I would like to keep him, but I'm not torn if he is gone. I would hope that the expectation coming in is that he's not expected to play 28 games as he's played 28 out of 34 so far this year, or 32 out of 34 last year for the team. I would hope that the expectation would be that he wouldn't need to or be expected to play that much time, basically. And I'm okay doing it for this. Is, if you are doing it, this has to be the last year, both him and Zuzi, in my opinion. If you're bringing either one or both back, I think this has to be the last year for both of them. I don't see either one being Preki and playing into their 40s.
You never know. But if we do, it's probably Zuzi. All right, Robert.
So here's a disappointment, and this is related, of course, but why have we not done a better job of finding a replacement for Roger in all this time? Maybe Jake Davis is that, but he's still, very green. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Mike, you've made some good points about, he does some things that other players don't. But you also made a good point. If keeping Roger hinders other people's progress, then, I'd rather see Roger move on and we see what those guys got, because we need to find out sooner or later.
Let's also not forget his wife is in Kansas City as well now,
right,
playing professionally.
Yeah. I think he's primed to start coaching because he's been doing some of that, correct?
Yeah. He at least last year, he had been helping out with the academy as he was working on his licenses. Him and Elie were, so I'm not sure where he stands this year on that, but he definitely was last year.
There was a Sporting Blue Valley team that was labeled as Sanchez Espinoza or Espinoza Sanchez, whichever it was. So I think that they were coaching there. But anyway, yeah, he's.
One more thing. We have not talked about this. I'm surprised. Roger's invaluable value as a mentor, as a team guy, as a locker room guy. Yeah.
And actually, I was going to kind of mention that on going into mine, because I have numerous times asked a younger player or a new player, who's welcomed you, who's helped teach you, who's been a mentor. And I want to say at least 95% of the time, the answer has been Roger Espinoza. They could be a defender, they could be a forward, they could be from another country, they could be from inside the league, a homegrown player. And almost every time I've asked that question at some point, and they've almost always said Roger Espinoza. So he's one of the glues in this team, probably even more so than Zusi. Zusi's the very quiet leader. Roger's the bring you in, joke with you, give you crap kind of uncle leader. You know what I mean? So then do you look to bring him back in? I guess the best example would be a Brad Evans locker room guy role. Now Evans wasn't expected to play that role when he was signed in 2018, but that's kind of the role he ended up playing when he didn't play any games. Well, yeah, I don't think he was expected to start a whole bunch, but he was expected
to play more than zero.
Yeah. Not arguing that. And I don't think if Roger comes back, they're going to expect him to play 30 games. I just don't think so. And I think with the potential roster Sporting has next year, he's going to be a guy that should come off the bench a lot and have a spot start. But I would be all in favor of bringing him back for those reasons. The mentorship, the presence off the bench, the leadership he would have in so many different ways. And if we need somebody to go out and just do a hard tackle on some Seattle player, we got the guy. All right. So I think we're all kind of in agreement is keep if the situation is right and stays relatively low price wise. Agreed?
Agreed.
Next up,
the other player out of contract without any options, player that we just mentioned, Felipe Hernandez, is had been under contract through 2020 with 2 option years that he has now finished up, basically. So he is out of options and out of contract after this season. So played, actually, if I remember right, and I don't have his stats pulled up, but I'm pretty sure he's one of only 2 guys that has played in every game this year, at least in league play. He's played he's played in all 32 games so far, either as a starter or a sub. Him and Voltaire are the only two that have played every game for Kansas City this season. So
interesting.
He had the whole. I mean, we can't talk about him without talking about the issues with
the gambling and being suspended by gambling on MLS, I guess we should say, because that caused him to miss time last year. And getting into some kind of trouble in addition to just that.
Yes. Yeah. Now, to be fair, I have to assume that the league and the team have mechanisms in place that are being monitored to make sure he's not falling into that path again, basically. But given his play, and he is 24, so he would qualify as a protected homegrown player one more year, because it's 25 and under, and it's turning 25 that year. So he turns 25 next year. So he would be protected one more year. If the number's right, I don't see a reason not to. He's I think the closest we have right now to replacing Roger. He doesn't have Roger's bite, but he has the engine that would be good coming off the bench as a midfield sub for either Kinda or Tommy next season. So I think you bring him back unless the numbers just absolutely don't work out at all.
Robert.
As far as stats go, time played, he equals Roger 1990s played. So in minutes, he's very equal to Roger. Key passes, 24 to Roger's 20. And I know they're different positions, but I'm just doing this for just comparison's sake. Interceptions in the midfield, Hernandez had 3 more than Roger. His pressing ability, stat-wise, nowhere near as successful as Roger. Again, but he plays a little different position. Progressive passes, Roger is more than double the amount of Hernandez had. But Felipe's duel percentage is one of the tops on the team in the midfield at 50.6%. So he has some strong stats and some that, for his position aren't going to be high as some other positions like Rogers. But I see absolutely no reason not to bring him back. He's developing, he's progressing. I think that's the key with a guy like Felipe. And he's at 85K, guys. Come on.
Well, he's going to be more than that if he signs again.
Yeah.
I don't expect him to be way high, but
right.
I expect him to be maybe that 250.
But at that same time, his contract would probably still qualify to where it wouldn't be the cap hit would be friendly. I guess is the best way to say it. So yeah.
I'm all in favor of keeping him, signing him, as long as the money isn't stupid. He's got the potential to be a regular MLS player. He already is a regular MLS player. I shouldn't even say he has a potential, but he has the potential of being a starting MLS player on a good team. I think he's going to struggle to replace Tommy or Kinda next year if Kinda is healthy. But if Kinda isn't, he's at least a really good option to have in that other 8/10-ish spot. And again, he has more bite than a lot of midfielders that we have, but not as much as Roger. So please keep him. And plus, that's a good sign for the homegrown pro player pathway story.
Which could use some wins, honestly.
Right.
The homegrown player process could really use some wins. Although
he's already a win, but
use some wins at the professional at a higher level. Right now, that's
consistent.
Right now, that's Busio and Shallowy, at least in Kansas City, have been the only really big success stories from the academy. So, a couple more that entice academy kids to come would be a good thing. So
exactly.
But
all right. So
next. I'm good moving on unless somebody's again has
Robert,
a point.
Just one little thing, using some of the words you guys just used. Felipe is a consistent player. There have been times where he has shown some flashes, but he does a lot of things well. He doesn't do anything especially well, but he's a consistent performer.
Yeah. And I think he can be a consistent starter on a good team. it's just he still has to. He's lost some valuable time last year because of the issue. He lost some time when he just couldn't get time because of too many people in front of him, etc. But I think he's a very good piece in that midfield. All right, next up, Mike.
Next up, let's just go with the player that only has an option left for 2023,
Okay.
Cam Duke. Duke, still young. He only
Robert looks really anxious to talk.
I think this is a tough one.
I agree in terms of playing time, but at the same time, I don't think it's hard simply because of the roster mechanisms. He, as a homegrown player, his salary's off the books. He's contributing. He's not, I don't think he is at the level Hernandez is, but think about where Hernandez is when he was Duke's age. He was not ready to contribute either. And I mean, Duke will turn 22 before next season and is on 93, something like that, 93K. I don't see a reason not to pick up his option. It's a friendly contract. It's a homegrown contract. So unless you have a player that's ready to step up into that spot, I don't see a reason not to at this point. And I'm not aware of an academy kid that's ready to step up in the midfield, and I'm not putting a ton of faith in the draft giving us a young, cheap option to come in and be a player that can come in off the bench. So in my opinion, this isn't hard. It's next year that's going to be the hard decision with Duke, in my opinion.
Go ahead, Robert, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Tommy ahead of him. He's got Kinda ahead of him as far as, you know, the playmaking type role, which Cam seems to be put into mostly. So that's a difficult thing. He goes backwards so much for a young player with the ball, which is not positive to see. And he's made a few little silly mistakes on other things, but
red card.
I just want to see more. Yeah, right. I just want to see more progress out of him. I know he's only 21. He's got these two guys ahead of him. Does he want to go on and see if he can catch on better somewhere else? I don't know.
And that's a fair argument. If he wants to go somewhere, do you hold a player back that wants to go and get more time? But unless he wants to go, I hate to say, even if he does want to go, that is just a super friendly team contract that I don't think you cut at this point. I think you keep that friendly contract, because although I said the same thing last year, and how many homegrowns did we get rid of in the off season that were on friendly contracts?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think Johnny's is a bit of an issue here too. He's going to be depth on the wings. He's got a big salary. He's 21. Do you look to find some space in that attacking midfield in some sense, or in the midfield for Johnny's? What do you do with him? So I think that's a bit of a factor with Duke as well.
Well, the one position that Duke's played this year that we haven't talked about was yesterday's topic, was the right back position, because he did play right back some. So it is, and this may be what kind of hurts him, is his versatility to play those different positions, basically. And I mean, I don't think he looked bad. I don't think he was a standout at right back, or else he'd probably still be playing right back at this point. But I think I'll add that to the nice contract that makes it an easy keep for me, in that his versatility, somebody that can play 3-4 different positions that's available to you on the bench, is a major plus to have.
Yeah.
And could still have a breakout year. So, I mean, he's a player that could be, and honestly, he's one of those that you always look at and go, oh man, he's got so much talent. But we've seen guys like that go negative, and they disappear in a year or two. But he's also a guy who could all of a sudden start unlocking defenses and running at people and setting up goals on a regular basis. He's just, I'm not predicting either way. He's just that really hard to look at guy that I don't know which way he's going to go. But like Mike said, he's on a good contract. I would keep him and hope that it all goes positive.
What do you think his biggest strength is, Thad?
When he's going in the right direction, it's that first step and that move that he's got. He's quick and he can do that. It's not always a smart one, but he's got that where he can take on people and beat them. So, I mean, that's why he can be a decent, a 10/8 kind of guy. He needs somebody, if he's in that midfield, he has to have somebody else strong next to him, Espinoza kind of thing. But if he's on the wing, he's capable of doing that. I'd almost like to see him just practice out there consistently. You know, he could just be that winger/right back kind of guy. You never know where he's going to be, which so many of Sporting's right or wingers and outside backs overlap so much. They're slightly different, obviously, but they're interchangeable in some little ways.
Yeah, you said breakout year. It's going to be tough for him to get time in that midfield with Tommy, with Hernandez, with Gadikinda.
He's going to have to show that. He's going to have to show that in practice or with the two team.
Yeah.
And one of the last practices that I saw him get his ass chewed. So
yeah. Okay.
Not saying, well, and there was more than one person getting their asses chewed, and he was the only one that actually got mentioned by name. So I can say I think I know exactly who was getting their asses chewed, but I know his name was mentioned.
I say let Duke go if he wants to go.
If he wants to go, I say let him go also, because you don't want an unhappy player.
Right.
But you might still want to keep him in the case, you know, like, again, like we've said, cheap contract, versatile. And even if he's unhappy, maybe that can get turned around by getting the playing time that he hasn't gotten.
If I had to make the decision, I would say let him go no matter, but that's my decision.
I would say keep him. Unless he absolutely 100% doesn't want to be here anymore, I would say keep him. The versatility, contract, all that, just it makes too much sense. Now, as I said, next year, then that's the big question, because Duke needs to show me something in 2023 to earn that next contract.
And if he does do something to earn that next contract, he may go elsewhere anyway. So
true.
All right.
True.
Next player up.
We'll continue with the homegrowns. Jake Davis, contract expires in 2023 with a 2024 option. Another homegrown player, 20 years old, has played very, very sparingly this year. 3 games, I believe, if I remember right, and 1 start in the Open Cup. Cheap contract, I believe he's on the roster minimum of like 65,000 or something like that. He's not a expensive contract. This personally, I think this one is harder than Duke, because he's only a year younger, and he's like last year Duke had 3 goals and was involved more with the first team. Davis, in a similar position this year, has been not involved in the first team. I still say you keep him. Again, it comes down to that friendly homegrown contract, but I'm not against moving on either.
Robert?
I think going back to Juan Kuzain, there are players that you can kind of see the writing on the wall. And I think that's what Mike is alluding to. So I kind of see it with him. I haven't been impressed with what I've seen. I don't know how he's done for SKC too. You guys have some insight there?
He has at times been one of the best players on the field, and he has at times been reckless.
Yeah.
And I really, really like Jake. I mean, he's a guy who I do, like I've said before, he could be the better, or he could be a version of Roger Espinoza. He has the bite. He's not willing to go in physical and all that stuff. I mean, I think he enjoys it more than Felipe Hernandez does, quite honestly, which I kind of like in a player. He has not as offensive as Felipe Hernandez or probably Roger at this point, but he has a little bit of that also. And I mean, I just like him as a player, so I would like to at least give him another year to see what happens. This year's been a tough spot for some players because they've had to ride the bench because of injuries. They needed the depth on the bench just in case somebody needed to play, so they didn't necessarily get minutes with SKC2 that they would have in a previous year. I know he had a couple of little injuries, stuff like that. So I would definitely keep him. I think he has he has that potential, but he's probably only got another year to show it.
I would be indifferent.
Yeah, like I said, the contract is right in my opinion to keep him. I'm not torn if he's gone, but the friendly contract means I'm okay with keeping him. So I don't, keep him and
like a couple of players we've talked about, you also have to judge, can you find somebody else to come in on even remotely that same contract that will contribute the same level of ability? So that's a player you don't have to go searching for.
Yeah.
With the time we have left, that I would suggest we talk about a particular player.
Yes. Start it, Robert.
All right, let's talk about Mr. Uri Rosell, 475K. What is the contract situation, Mike?
He is under a guaranteed contract because he has the experience to qualify for the guaranteed contract. He is on a guaranteed contract until 2020 through the 2023 season with a 2024 option.
Okay.
And in my opinion, I know there's been talk the past week or so about buying out contracts of players and who they should buy them out for, specifically to bring in another DP because of how good Agata is playing. But if there's one player I'm buying out the contract of this offseason, it's Uri. Uri needs to be off this roster. He is not at that cap hit at what we've seen from him this year. He is not the player that he was when he left here. He is not close to the player he was when he left here. He's a great guy, but he's not an MLS quality 6 anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he has two stats that complement him. His interception stats are strong. His pressing percentage is strong. But we need a much stronger 6 to compete and be an MLS Cup challenger in this league. And that also brings up another point. If that's something we're going to get, a stronger 6, that brings Voltaire into the mix in the other midfield positions we talked about. And
yes,
but that's another bucket. But I think Uri, if we can buy him out, we definitely do that. He's extra weight we don't need, in my opinion.
And I will tell you, it breaks my heart to say this, but yes, I could let Uri go.
Yeah. So that I don't know if you're gonna luck out if you get a starter probably at his price at this point in the 6, but that is cap space that can be used to bring in a quality depth piece somewhere on the field, even at the 6 to replace him. It just he's. I think there were questions when he was signed, but I think the expectation was that Mauri and Voltaire would do the heavy lifting there, and then Mauri decided that he just wanted to be lazy, I guess, so Rosell had to play more of a role, and Rosell just did not look ready to have that level of responsibility anymore.
And I know there was like some talk about him needing to adjust back from being a double pivot to a single pivot, but I didn't think he was actually good at a double pivot either.
No, he has not been great since he's returned to MLS.
But I was very suspect of him from the start. Nothing's changed.
I wish him well. I would love for him to stay in Kansas City and open up a bar or a Catalan cafe or something. But he's a wonderful guy, and like I said, it hurts me to say it, but I would, if I had to make that decision as a GM or a technical director or soccer god, operations guy, whatever, I would have to make that decision and do it in a very heavy heart. I think we're all in agreement. So
Yep.
let's we have a little bit of limited time, so this is going to be the lightning round.
Yeah, because I think these four are fairly the final four we have to go through are fairly straightforward in my opinion.
All right.
Okay, I have three, so okay.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see who the fourth is.
Yeah, I have four. we have Voltaire, Kinda, Tommy, and Cisneros.
Okay, you consider him midfield. Okay, midfield forward. Okay.
Yeah, I consider him midfield. We can bump him to the forwards if you want to, but
whatever.
I had him listed as midfield, but Voltaire you keep, Kinda you keep, Tommy you absolutely keep. I know everybody's loving Agata, but I think Tommy's as much, if not more, the reason for the turnaround than Agata is with the team at this point. So
yeah,
I think you keep all three. Voltaire is under contract till the end of 2023 with a 24 option. Kinda's 2024, Tommy's 2024, and Cisneros is 2024. Tommy and Cisneros also have 2025 options. So they're all under contract. I don't see any reason to get rid of any of them. Cisneros, again, on the nice, friendly, homegrown contract, and the other three are just good. They're arguably your starters next year.
And let's just call him Ozzy because I don't think you're saying last name correctly. Okay. But anyway, I have no room to talk, but Ozzy is some guy who he has that potential. He got hurt. I've never really seen him and said, oh yeah, I think he's going to be a superstar in MLS, but I would love for him to just prove me freaking wrong. So the other three, everybody else, the other three are your starters basically, right, as of right now. And the only caveat to that is we got to see how Kinda heals. So if in spring training they go, he's nowhere close, we got to get rid of him, he's never going to come back, which I don't think they will be able to say at that point. But I mean, that would be the only caveat.
So how has Ozzy Cisneros performed with SKC2 when he's played?
He hasn't played much this year. Ozzy's was limited to just the one U.S. Open Cup appearance where he subbed out early, and he played 4 games for 180 minutes for SKC2 this year. And I don't think any of them came, well, that last appearance was on May 8th. So he has not, wow, because of the injury he picked up in the Open Cup. He hasn't played since May 8th, basically.
Gotcha. Right. He's just starting to come back now.
So he had the same, I assume, similar level of injury that kept Lindsay out the second half of last year, basically.
All right, quick question I'll throw out. Thad's going to get mad at me, but is Remy Voltaire a 6 that's good enough to bring this team up to MLS Cup contender?
I'm not convinced. I'm not. He's a very, very good player, but I'm not convinced he's MLS quality at the 6, which is why I go back and forth on bringing in you either bring in a 6, or we go back to our conversation last night about do you bring Fontas back as that distributor? Because right, Voltaire's not a bad passer, but Fontas or a better 6 would be a better passer.
And I think in our final discussion of this series, we're going to have those okay,
right?
We talked about this player and this player, but now we got to talk about combinations of players, because
exactly,
Remy may be a very serviceable MLS 6. Because I don't think you say he's not an MLS 6. I think he's an okay MLS 6. He's not a superstar MLS 6.
He's an MLS 6. He's not an MLS Cup winning 6, in my opinion.
I think it all depends on who's around him. Because I mean, we won a cup with Lawrence Olam there.
All right, Thad, wrap things up, man.
All right, we got to go. I'm running out of time. I thank you both. We'll be back with another episode with the forwards. And any last words very quickly, guys? All right,
go sporting.
We're out.